What's going on, y'all? And, Happy New Year. Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass Christian Shai. What's going on, fellas? 2025.
Crazy. Shit
Good,
came
yo.
fast, but look, we're here. That's good.
Yeah, it definitely came fast. You know, when they say as you get older, the years seem faster because, it's a less portion of your life. Like we're like 10 years old, a year is what, 1% of our lives or 10% of our lives. So, it seemed like it was so long. Now it's, it just, I'm sure, I don't know how y'all live, but I live quarter by quarter. So that should be going quick as hell.
Facts, same way.
Uh, with that being said, with the turn of the year, that also means the turn of the NFL season. We are in the final week of the season. Just about every playoff spot is locked up on both sides. Obviously, the Falcons and the Bucks are still fighting for the division, and there's a little bit of seeding. Obviously, we'll get into the big Sunday night game as well. But what you guys, how you guys feel about the season now that it's basically, I mean, it is over. And then as well as the last week, what we saw, some of the nonsense, some of the good games. What's your thoughts?
I would say my main one overall is there's a lot of just bad teams this season. Like the past couple of seasons, and I know this from being in the mix there. The Falcons picked 8th at 7-10. 7-10 would get you 13, 14 right now, which is crazy. Like it's so many 3, 4, 5 win teams. It's like and they're all just jumbled there. And there's a lot in play, honestly, still this last week to see how that kind of shakes out in the top 10 for the NFL draft. So that's my main takeaway. Like this season, we have surprising teams like our first 14 win 5 seed and wild card team, I should say. But also, yeah, just like the number of bad teams, just like it's ridiculous.
For me, kind of like I don't want to say changing of regard, but it sort of felt that way as far as like NFC versus AFC because I felt like this year the NFC they have plenty of strong teams. I know you were saying about the record cast, but at the same time you got 3 teams in the same division with 10 plus wins. You have another team in that conference with 13 wins, and you got 2 other teams with 10 wins. So, and in the AFC, it's kind of a different story. You still got your top teams, like the top teams you know of, but the other teams, they're still fighting to claim that last wild card spot. When theoretically NFC is already pretty much locked up outside of like maybe just positioning wise, and for you guys getting the division title, but couple surprise team this year, like you talk about the Vikings. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming. I for sure as hell didn't think they were going to be even.
Especially 14 wins, it's crazy.
I thought the division would be pretty good, but to see the teams, going back and forth throughout the year, kind of surprising a little bit. But it was overall, I could say, good season, very enjoyable season, I should say. A lot of highlights.
Vikings, people were kind of expecting them at some point in the season, like it would take, Sam Darnold would drop off the ledge, the play would drop off the ledge at least, not him personally, but especially because their schedule was also tough, and they just kept fighting through it and getting better and better out throughout the season, and his play got better throughout the season where you thought it was gonna, take a decline, but like you said, Cass, a lot of bad teams, a lot of dysfunction, just really, it's seemingly like all over. Obviously, the Colts, my team has been in the media, especially this week, but throughout the season. But I mean, Las Vegas, I guess, people are kind of chopping it up to they don't have a lot of talent. They're fighting, but, there was a lot of stuff going on at the beginning of the season there.
They fired their OC and everything.
Yeah. Cincinnati had a lot of issues, even though they're still trying to fight to get into the playoffs. But there's still a lot of stuff that has to be cleared up there. There's a lot of questions that really didn't get any answers, and probably opened up for more questioning with their season this year, even as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase were playing really well, and T. Higgins as well. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, the Cardinals, what position are they in? Coming into the offseason. Houston, a team that everybody thought was going to be in a pole position to be a contender. Obviously, they're still in the playoffs, but even the most optimistic fan can't come out of this season thinking anything super positive, in my opinion. It's a lot of New York, all of New York, really.
Both of them.
Both the New York teams. So it's like Carolina's seeming to be on the up and up, but that's saying something considering they still only have 4 or 5 wins. So we'll see. But it's a lot of questions. San Fran, they've got a lot of questions. It's a lot of questions. So
Cleveland, which they just restructured Deshaun Watson's contract, so it's like what?
Miami. It's a lot. Even in Minnesota, they're having such a positive season. It's like they're still going to be at the end of the season. What to do with Sam Darnold? What to do with JJ McCarthy? How should we proceed? So we can kind of start there. What did you guys do? How do you guys feel about that now that we're towards the end of the season? Do you think that Sam should stick in Minnesota, or do you guys think that JJ should ultimately take over and he should go elsewhere?
I mean, if you're going off of based on like what makes, I guess, monetary sense, you just have to get rid of Sam Darnold and just it make JJ your future, because at that point, he's a first round rookie. At this point, you're gonna have to pay Sam Darnold, and I don't know what his contract could command, but theoretically, most of the time, teams like to build around a rookie quarterback because their big, cap hit is not going to happen until later down the line. And, you could surround them even more weapons. He still got a good receiving core. You got a good running back. Offensive line is pretty good, even with the injury to Darisaw. But you might want to, shore up your defense a little bit, shore up the corners. And with giving the reign to J.J. McCarthy, you get to bolster up your team within free agency. So, I wouldn't mind them keeping Sam Darnold, but I think for that aspect, they probably would just go ahead and let him walk and, give it to give it his second year, but rookie technically. So, yeah.
I've honestly been going back and forth on it every week that I see Sam Darnold go out and produce like he has. The tough part, honestly, is that Sam Darnold is only 27 years old. So realistically, he could still be your quarterback for the next, let's just say even 5 to 6 seasons. You know what I mean? If you do choose to let him ride off, then JJ will have, I'm sure they have a great coach. We all know Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. But then you had the pressure on JJ as well. Because if he comes out, like you following up a 14-win season, it really don't really matter how it kind of plays off in the playoffs. You're following a 14-win season, so anything that kind of looks a little shaky next year, they're going to judge that. Oh, they should have kept Sam. It's going to be that same narrative the whole season. So in a way, it's kind of like I don't know what what solution is.
If you don't.
Honestly, because I highly doubt that they would go out and win 14. If they win 14 wins, if they get 14 again next season, then it's like, all right, damn, But I don't think that will happen. So because of that, it's like JJ's going to have that pressure, and again, it'll be his basically rookie season. So and we don't really know how he looks. He looked all right in preseason that one game, but preseason. So it's a tough decision they got to make. I would lean towards keeping Darnold, but I wouldn't blame him if they just let him ride, because you said monetary reasons. Because he is going to want that check this all season for sure, and I know that wasn't really in their plans. It couldn't have been. So,
and it's number one, it's funny how history repeats itself, because a few years back, Case Keenum took the same Vikings team to the NFC Championship. He was at that point in time like 28 years old. It wasn't a rookie quarterback, but obviously it was Kirk Cousins that came in and replaced him. But it is funny. Speaking of Kirk Cousins, is anybody having a worse season than him? Both of his play. And then, you guys, number one, you went to Minnesota, obviously, and played in Minnesota with your current team, got waxed. Was part of pretty much your downfall, to the point where you got benched. And then you're watching the team that replaced you get better. with a quarterback that coming in the season nobody would have even said was on your level. So I mean, that's got to be. I mean, it's
Yeah, that's
tough. I
tough.
mean, it's
That's tough.
tough, and it's definitely you know if Kirk Cousins had any type of ego, he's definitely been
Right,
humbled
and
this
the
season.
disrespect that
Um,
I mean, the disrespect that they keep pandering to this man during the game is crazy. Just stop showing the man, bro.
With the helmet on
That's so
still.
fucked up.
I
I
mean, we
don't
knew
know,
that was gonna happen in
but he
prime
be
time
making
though.
and I think honestly, I mean,
He about to cry.
we people like to say like body language, and I kind of hate going into that because we don't know these dudes. But with that being said, the body language, the hands on the hips, obviously, like he's trying to be as supportive as possible. But I mean, it's once again being in a place that you played formerly, so I'm sure he probably had that game on Sunday Night Football with an opportunity for your team to get into the playoffs. I'm sure he was a
Circle.
little frustrated, especially you're watching the young kid. He's not having a good game, and obviously he had a good end to his game, but he's probably sitting there like they were. If it was me, they head ass.
For sure. For
So
sure.
it's he's having. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's definitely humbling. And take that damn helmet off, Kurt. Like, sorry. Like, if you crying,
Just put
just
the
show it,
earpiece
bro.
on, dog.
Man,
Put the
put the
earpiece on. You ain't
headset.
gotta put the whole helmet on to listen.
Because it do look. I mean, it's not a great look where you're just sitting there like it don't look like he talking or like
Right,
saying
No, he
nothing.
just
he
out.
off
He's
to the
out on the.
side.
He's at the
He's
end.
on the side.
Is yeah,
Like
exactly.
he's stand. I mean, it's
The
crazy, but he's
energy,
standing offensive coordinator. So I don't know. He off to the side.
his the energy seems off. Like
Yeah,
it seems off.
it's awkward.
Which once
It
again,
was a
you know,
side note. It was like a Drake was mic'd up last game against the Giants, and you could see him kind of like look at Kurt, kind of like, should I say something to him? Like, that's that awkward shit that don't need to be on the sidelines, just like he said. So gotta get.
it's tough, and
Yeah,
he's been in the position before, so he should. I'm not saying that he's not handling it the right way because once again, we don't know, and it's just from the outside looking in. And,
yeah.
there's you might want to assume that somebody's upset, even though they really might not be. But it just the visual of it just not doesn't look
Don't look
great.
good.
But
So what do you think about
speaking
Sam
of
Darnold though? Before we move on,
about Sam Darnold, I would definitely get into I would look into the franchising and trying to trade him.
Mhm.
But I don't know if and it would also depend on how JJ looked in practice, and you might even want to see. Obviously, he's coming off of an injury this season, so you might even want to see if you can bring in Sam Darnold and trying to ease him in and maybe trade him a season after. But I wouldn't want to get caught up in the you know get caught up in the career renaissance for him because even Baker last year there was a lot of questions coming into the offseason like should we do it, should we
yeah,
not, and he's played probably the best of his career to kind of make the point, but there was a lot of questions on should the Bucks go forward with Baker. Obviously, we saw with the guy backing up Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, he had a little bit of a career resurgence. Obviously, it was with the team that drafted him, but they locked himself in, and you see how that turned out. So I wouldn't want to fall in love with that. And depending on what the money he's asking for, if it's something that's outrageous, then I probably would go. But if it's something that's reasonable, that could eventually be a tradable contract, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't keep him at least through the offseason, see how JJ is, and then if JJ needs to be eased into the season, some quarterback is going to get hurt. Uh, you know, Colin Cowherd has been, uh, you know, championing the Sam Darnold to Indianapolis, and the Colts. Really, after everything that's happened this past week, you'd have to assume that Anthony Richardson, if he's even the starter next year, or you'd have to assume that he's on thin ice. So maybe the Colts become a team that could trade for him, or some other team like Jacksonville. Maybe you never know what happens with Trevor Lawrence. Could that be a team that looks so? I would play it, try to play it by ear. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't get locked into something that's 5 years, 50
yeah.
million.
So crazy like that, for sure.
Yeah, but we can switch gears to talking about a team with questions. Once again, here we are talking about the Indianapolis Colts again. Embarrassing loss to the New York Giants this week. Really, everything just about everything that came out last week. I mean, you could have, if you really thought about it, and coming in on Wednesday and seeing that Anthony Richardson is randomly hurt, then hearing its soreness, and then hearing the back and forth, you could probably assume that the Colts were going to lose that game, even though it was the Giants. But what did you guys think? And just everything that's come out of Indy, obviously the Pat McAfee stuff. How did you guys feel about that, and just everything that's happened with them, kind of the dysfunction this past week? Well, this past season.
And it's never good when the issue is your quarterback, a quarterback that well, I'm not just him, but just partially like surrounding him, as far as like, this is the quarterback that you just drafted, like top 5 pick. Like, I feel like sometimes teams feel the pressure to win now based on whatever circumstance, and I feel like they allow that to influence how they adjust or run their organization. Like, why did he get benched the first time? Like, that I feel like if it wasn't for that, even if you had the loss to the Giants, but maybe Pat McAfee said something, but it all snowballed from that point, like from the point of him being benched.
Well, the tap
out, and then just not really knowing exactly why did you bench him. They didn't really say, like, just be honest. And teams have a bad habit of just not being honest. And I feel like you get that shit from Nick Sirianni, because he do the same shit. He just be like, we'll see. He don't talk about no injury, no nothing. He just be like, we'll see. I don't talk to nobody. You dead. You don't fucking talk to people. Stop playing. You already talk to the medical staff.
And I was really gonna say, it's kind of you can kind of look at it as both a positive and a negative against Nick Sirianni, because like you said, I mean, part of the head coaching position is also, I don't know what percentage you want to put on it, but you also want to develop coaches, and all, technically Shane Steichen would be attributed to a Nick Sirianni tree for both of them to be as poor as they are. The media, it is kind of funny, but it's also like, obviously the Colts and the Eagles have had the coaching back and forth over the past 5-6 years, but it's funny to see when Doug or Frank, when it came to the Colts, Frank was really the guy that made everything work with Doug, and with the Eagles. And then initially that was kind of the sentiment last year, especially with Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen kind of made everything work, and now it's just funny to see the flip side of Shane kind of fumbling, where Nick, I mean, not to say that Nick has been thriving in terms of the his PR, but in terms of the results. But
yeah, I just feel like y'all issues is more so self-inflicted. And I know, and I can't even speak to how you might feel, because I know y'all been going, back and forth since Andrew Luck trying to get a fucking quarterback. And then just to see this shit break down and almost like pretty much breaking down again, it's like, bro, what the fuck going on? So I don't know. A lot of times it just self-inflicted shit by the organization. It can be very much preventable, but it sucks.
It's unfortunate to kind of see it just play out like in real time, and it does not help that Pat McAfee is involved with all this, and him being a prominent figure at ESPN right now, who a lot of people just listen to and just take what he says, which I'm not saying that he's wrong or right, but he does have that voice to where you listen and be like, oh shit, something is wrong in Indy, something's going on in Indy. So you saw that earlier in the season for sure. This week, the soreness stuff with Shane, like, dude, like, and for it to come out and be a slip disc basically or something like that in his back, like, you gotta I don't know, it's like he's not reading the room as far as like everybody else, media, fans, and he's kind of just stuck in his own little way about keeping shit in the house. But at the same time, dude, like, that's how shit turns against you fast. It's been rough, especially for AR. Like you said, Chris, like, expectations for rookie quarterback, it has shifted, and it's shifted with the mindset that a lot of people have. Whereas, okay, you have the rookie on the, he's on a rookie contract, build around him so he can win now, kind of mindset. And when you get caught up in that, shit can go wrong, because if you get in like a win now kind of mindset or a playoff or bust mindset, then you make decisions like he made this season where he's benching AR over whatever reason, so it's been tough. I don't know what y'all gonna do there. I don't know if y'all can bring Shane back. Hopefully you do. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think he's caught up in the situation right now. Bad situation right now. What are you gonna do with Chris Ballard? Like you said, it's been 8 years. A lot of people have been talking about how his drafts, he tries to build through the draft, but he doesn't have the strongest drafts. And he doesn't really spend the money as well, like you probably want to in free agency as far as like outside players. And he signs his own players, especially he did last season. But a lot of questions in Indianapolis that this Giants loss just kind of amplified. It wasn't shocking, like you said, Shad, but I mean, the Giants were really bad. I didn't think the defense
It was
would go out there and
shocking,
play
but
like.
it shouldn't have been shocking.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny to see like Gus Bradley's comments. Like people were asking him like, yeah, how you feel about your job security after that? And he said, I mean, I'm embarrassed. Like he kind of like is bracing for being let go at this this time a little bit.
But
go ahead.
Before you go, Shy, and it's just also like we didn't just speak on it, but the whole podcast with Zaire, like to say what you said about let's play the fucking Giants and then and that happens, like you
get curb stomped.
I'm just like, bro, like put down the podcast at least, unless you like. I do agree with some people's sentiment of veteran players if they they on their way out is whatever, blah blah blah. But like, bro, like even in season, like you just got to put that shit down, man, because you just or get a real PR team to tell you like talk about something else, man. Like to say that shit and then to put that out there, same shit with Michael Parsons, the shit he be saying, and then to go out to show this, it's just like, bro, like you just making it bad for not just yourself, your team in general. But you go ahead,
losing 41-7 and saying,
if you took the scoreboard away,
if you take away, if you take away the score, if you take away these 5 plays that they
crazy.
Yeah, it is. The podcast thing is it's really biting him in the ass because not only did he obviously engage Pat McAfee and going back and forth, he also he obviously said his comments. He obviously said comments about the Texans, which the Colts are 0-2 against the Texans. Talking about it's a rivalry or it's up or whatever the fuck he said, but it's a shame for him because the Colts, he wasn't supposed to ever play, like not be a serious starter. He's developed into he says he's really respected in the locker room and stuff like that. Obviously, we're not in the locker room, but he's losing a lot of respect in India. I'll tell you that, just in general amongst the fan base. But it was unfortunate because obviously the Colts had Shaq Leonard. He was supposed to be the guy, and then he gets hurt. And obviously because he got hurt and because of his contract number, Bobby Okereke, another really good linebacker, they had to let go or let him go into free agency. So Zaire, EJ Speed weren't necessarily guys that the Colts were project. Obviously you're not saying that we just drafted him so he play on special teams. Obviously you hope that they turn into productive players, which he has. He's definitely he makes tackles. He's definitely Big Wolf. I don't. A part of it's funny because for him to be one of the guys that's so like people can't talk to me crazy or like I be talking, I be chirping at people, blah blah blah. Like the Colts are an incredibly soft team, for a team that shouldn't be soft. Like you have Quinn Nelson, who nobody's really trying to see for real, like on the field at least. Jonathan Taylor is a physically imposing back, but Anthony Richardson is a physically imposing player. Zaire is supposed to be a big wolf. Michael Pittman is a big dude that it's not. What's the name? Grover Stewart is a physically imposing player. DeForest Buckner is a 6'8" D tackle, a physically imposing player, and you just get the New York Giants is doing whatever they want to do with you. So it's like fake toughness. And that's it's a top to bottom thing. Not only it's Chris Ballard, it's Shane, it's Jim Irsay, it's Zaire Franklin, who's supposed to be a leader, DeForest Buckner, who's supposed to be a leader, Brian Kelly, who's supposed to be a leader, Quinn Nelson, who's supposed to be a leader. All of these guys, it's a top to bottom operation, and it's it's tough because do you want to keep Shane Steichen or Chris Ballard? I mean, I think I'll be the first person to say, even with the results, I think both of them are good at their job. To an extent, obviously Shane Steichen has shit the bed big time on the PR front this year, and handling kind of the emotions. There's been some back and forth from some of the things that he said about, obviously Pat McAfee called the Colts out top to bottom, called him out about being late, called him about missing treatments and stuff like that. I don't know who he's referring to because that's never been reported. You know, people getting on Shane because he said, you can't expect everybody to be on time. I didn't see it too big of an issue with that because that is 100% fact. We all know that from the jobs that we work at, any job at any place. You can't expect everybody to be. You can strive for it, but the reality of it, somebody being on time 24/7, 365, slim to none. How you are accountable about it is what's more important. And I think that he didn't do a good job of articulating that point. That Gus Bradley came behind and did do a good job of articulating, like, hey, yeah, people might show up late, but they're getting fined. They lose play time. Like, if Shane would have said that, once again, he wouldn't have been in this position. If he would have said this shit about Anthony Richardson from the start, he wouldn't be in this position. And it's just, but to go back, do you keep Shane Steichen? I mean, this is kind of how everything started. You kept Chuck Pagano and got rid of Ryan Grigson, brought in Chris Ballard. So you kind of had a lame duck coach. Then from there, you get left at the altar with Josh McDaniels, and you had to pivot to get Frank Reich, Jeff Saturday. I don't know what the fuck happened there. And then you get to Shane Steichen. So it's like, do you want to continue that cycle of having the staggered? So I don't know. I don't know. It's tough. I will say that they've, this is a master class or a disaster class of how to not operate with a young quarterback. At this point, you have to operate as if Anthony Richardson, I don't want to say is a lost cause, but you have to operate as if next year he's got a short lease next year. But, if whether Anthony Richardson is trash, ass, whatever or not, he's taken a lot of bullets this year. A lot. He took a lot last year, but, he wasn't really around. But he's taken a lot, like from the tap out, fallout, to this injury, people trying to call him soft. Pat McAfee he ain't put no names on it, but he's basically like tried to say, inferred that Anthony Richardson is just a child, that didn't know, he's very immature, blah, 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 blah. Like, so people are, he's taking a lot of bullets. And then this week with the back injury, now for you to come out today and be like, oh, well, the man couldn't walk. Well, why the fuck didn't you just say that last week? That would have changed everything. Like, why didn't you just say that? And so I don't know. It's tough. It's a very tough situation. And then, it sucks for all involved, the fans, the Colts team itself. I will say the one thing that I do, I'm a little annoyed by is like Pat McAfee, you got to stop acting like, oh, I don't know that my voice carries. Like the whole reason that you both put out this tweet, the whole reason that you did a whole
know what he doing,
5-minute
bro.
monologue is because you know that Indy is listening. You know that your voice carries with Jim Irsay. Stop playing games. Like, stop playing games, bro. Like, you know that. And stop also being like, people, XYZ, this doesn't happen on good teams, blah, blah, blah. Like, the whole Kansas City offense basically got arrested this offseason, like a week after getting in the fucking
Yeah, they did.
Shut up. Andy Reid's son was involved in like a deathly hit and run during a Super Bowl run. Please cut it out. Please cut. Pat McAfee, you on a team with Peyton Manning, got caught drunk in public indecency. You got drunk and went to a freaking lake in Indy. Like, it happened. It's all about how they've handled it, and the Colts haven't handled it well. Stop painting this false narrative, man.
He kills me with that. What do I know? I'm just a punter. Like, dude, okay, now you were a punter. You're a lot more than a fucking punter. Let's be real.
And talk about he was nominated for the Hall of Fame 3 times. Like, my boy, no disrespect to your career, and I absolutely love you as a fan of the Colts. Loved you as your time. I love you. I still like you as a media head. Let's be fucking honest, man. Your only reason that you're even up for the Hall of Fame at any point, you've never been a Hall of Fame finalist, but the only reason that you're up for that is because people know you from the Pat McAfee show. not because anything that you did on the punting. You weren't all decade punter. You weren't an all decade punter. You were a one time All Pro, my boy. Like you were a great punter, and I absolutely think he was the best punter in the league for the entirety of the time that he was in the league. But the accolades don't say a Hall of Famer, man. Let's be real. And then nobody's won anything, my boy. You didn't win a Super Bowl either. You didn't win a Super Bowl, so let's just calm, like woosah. The frustration is here, but let's take it down a second and let's actually put real truths out here so that we can get real change, not just a bunch of nonsense for clicks. So, but it's all bad. We'll see how the season ends for them. It's going to be an interesting offseason all across the board. And, Chris Ballard, hot seat watch. Hot seat watch, Chris Ballard. Big time.
For sure.
But, man, the rest of the week, man, what did you guys think of the game? Denver obviously fumbled the bag big time and possibly left the door open for the Colts really to take over, but obviously they fumbled the bag. Pittsburgh continues to be trash. Another MVP performance by Lamar. Another MVP performance by Josh, really, as well. What did you guys think of the week of football this week?
It started off kind of rocky. So, of course, we had the Christmas Day games. And those ended up being two blowouts, which not surprising if you actually have been following like what's been going on with these teams, especially like with Pittsburgh and Houston. So not surprising at all how the games turned out. They still had a lot of viewers. That's just the NFL. So I think they would continue trying to poach this holiday going forward for sure. I don't think that detracted them at all. Then you saw the Thursday night game with the Seahawks and the Bears. Seahawks kind of like they won, but this shit didn't look good, and they end up later on Sunday being eliminated from playoffs. But again, you saw that the coaching malpractice kind of with this timeouts in the game situation that I'm going to bring up in a couple minutes too with my team. But yeah, no, the Broncos really sold that. They had a chance to get into the playoffs. They had a winnable game. They had a few chances to win that game. But again, not surprised because like Bo Nix had a couple of good throws. I get it. He had the bomb to the back of the end zone. Beautiful throw. Got to give him that. Got to give him his credit on that. The other touchdown to Mims on the sideline in the end zone. He just threw that shit up. Like, gotta be real. Like, I understand he caught it. But
he did start hooping at the end. Like, towards the end of it, at first he was trash. But, like, once they kind of let him open it up at the like, second half, he started playing really. That's probably the best. But second half was probably the
thing
best
is, though, it was the play calling down the stretch. They'll have a run play, then they'll throw a screen. It's happened a couple of times. I think it happened one time in overtime, one time at the end of the fourth.
Run pass.
They do a run, they do a screenplay that gets no yards, and then Bo Nix is in third and long situation, which you don't want to put him in too many times. So just play calling malpractice on that for Sean Payton. They're in trouble right now. Like, look, they're playing the backups for the Chiefs, but I still think that is the better coach team.
They're a heavy favorite too.
Look, they could fuck around and lose that game. And if that does happen, of course, you talk about the Colts selling their chance. But then the Dolphins are starting Snoop Huntley again against the Jets. And so, I mean, the Bengals could have a chance to get in. They handle business on Saturday and kind of just watch what happens. So that's still open for the Bengals. Like you said, the Cardinals, it wasn't a bad game they played, but Kyler Murray did throw the ball 48 times, and they only scored 9 points, no points in the first half as an offense. Something's bad over there. Like I mentioned last week with the OC, something's off. Something's off, and it has to be fixed. I get James Conner went out in the first. He shouldn't even really play that game at all. But the Cardinals, like you said, have a lot of questions. But I'm gonna lean towards the Falcons with this one. It was a great Sunday night game overall, probably for viewers. It was good to see the two rookies, go head to head with Michael Penix and Jay Daniels. Raheem is catching hell right now. Raheem Morris is catching hell because of that. Because of that decision, at the end of the game, where he had a chance to get, maybe in favorable position for your kicker. A lot of people are calling for his job, which I think is way overblown. You don't want to get in the business of firing coaches after 1 year, especially when they could possibly have a winning season. It's just that doesn't make sense to me at all. I get that this was bad. He sold the playoffs, but at the same time, our playoffs were fucking going. If we're being real about it, that 4-5 game stretch with Kirk Cousins that's when our playoffs kind of just shrunk. It was just like, oh, we fucked up. It is what it is. You kind of move on. You change quarterbacks. Anything else is a plus. In my eyes, that's how I kind of view. I wanted to make the playoffs, but I'm not mad. Like I'm not like they were a better team. And you mentioned this shot last week. The Washington Commanders this season have lost to the good teams and beat the teams that they're better in. That's just how it is this season. That's why they have a good record, because they had an easier schedule, first last place schedule. And that's kind of what it was. So I'm not tripping about it too much. It was terrible for Raheem Morphy. If he does that again, because that's the shit we saw Eberflus lose a job about, but also he did it a couple times, and it was also in the midst of a bad loser streak. So if that were to happen with Raheem Morris again and that type of situation, then yeah. But right now, I think people calling for his job are just it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
I will say it's funny that people are like coming at him bad, but the play that they didn't call the timeout was a wide open play that Michael Penix.
That's what I was going to talk about next. That's exactly what I was talking about next. Because if he hit Darnell Mooney on that corner, he would have been at 30-yard line. Exactly. Michael Penix was y'all know how I feel about Michael Penix.
He cooked him off the line too. If you go back and watch,
he did. Bro.
I seen it on the like when I was watching the game. I was like, oh, it's over with. And he
was airmailing throws all night. Now I get it; it's his second start, but it was I don't know if it comes with, but you saw that type of shit in college too. I'll be honest, I did see that a lot in college where he would just airmail some shit. And it's just be like, okay, is it footwork? Is it chemistry? Can it be cleaned up? We'll see going forward. But that's what really lost the damn game. Because that shit would have had you at a 30-yard line with a way better field goal chance. But he airmailed that shit, and then the play directly after that, he threw over the middle. I don't know, the receiver fell. I don't know what the hell happened. But then you're sitting at 7 seconds, and it's like, well, shit. Now you got, and they got lucky with the pass interference at that point. So, but Jaden Daniels, he locked up Rookie of the Year last week. He definitely locked up Rookie. There's no question after that performance on Sunday night. Shout out to him. He's a tough guard. 127 yards on the ground. We had people trying to spy him. That shit didn't work. We tried to keep him contained. That shit didn't work. He caused a lot of problems. You got to be very disciplined as a group, as a defense, and if he catches fire in the playoffs, I don't know we'll see who they end up playing, because that's not set in stone just yet. But he catches fire in the playoffs, man. It'll be tough to go. If they play a team like the Rams, that shit could be a shootout. You know what I mean? I don't think the Rams defense is good enough to kind of compete with that offense, that type of dual threat at quarterback. So I'm very interested to see the playoff matchups. I think that's very important in the NFC more than anything this season.
But to be honest with you, if I'm being honest about the game you're talking about, if Michael Penix wasn't overthrowing the pass, they would got blown the fuck off the field. Their defense is not the Commander defense is not good.
Their defense is not good.
It was plays that y'all really I know what you're saying as far as trying to keep it bottled up. Y'all defense played pretty good against them for the most part. Right. And so the thing was, if he wasn't airmailing them ball, he airmailed a good 6-7 passes that were like big plays.
It was a lot. It was like, come on, bro.
And so
but
like you said,
what they did though in the second half though, they switched it up to where they controlled the clock.
That's true.
Third quarter.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And if you can do that, where like we saw his passing chart where he was taking the 5-yard throws, he was running getting the chunk down the field. If you can do that, keep your defense off the field, but still have the confidence to go out there and convert on fourth downs like they do a lot. They went for like fourth downs in that game. When you got to make the other defense play all 4 downs, it's very tough. It's very tough. And that's not something you really want to see. So in the playoffs, but yeah, the Commanders defense is not good. They threw some mixes at Michael Penix, but I think he navigated it all right. He just didn't have that rhythm tonight at all. Not tonight, but Sunday night. But yeah.
First of all, we see in too many of these teams not finishing the tackles. I mean, that's a big problem
Gosh.
that's rampant. I mean, that really almost sold the Washington the game because they had Penix and that last play that he ended up converting. Where I mean, they had him sacked. Really, they could have sacked him. 3 niggas could have sacked him, and he literally didn't move. Just stood there, looked at
He
him.
just stood there
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, what are you doing? But I mean,
Too much arm tackling.
You know, excuse me. As Chris mentioned, if Penix had a bad game, I mean, it is what it is. But it ended on a high note, so it's like second game. Do you really want to crush him for in a very, very important game, biggest game of his career, obviously? Then like you said, not too much rhythm, and then you're still able to see him go down, get the chance, given an opportunity, go down and make a game winning or a game tying touchdown on a 4th down play. So I mean, it's like it sucks, but it's also like he should have never been in that position in the first place. If we handled our business, or if Kirk Cousins didn't shit the bed, like he wouldn't have been put in that position. So Jaden, on the other hand, he was poised. He was really good. There was a couple times that the Falcons, obviously with the Falcons had like 5 sacks or something like that.
Yeah.
Jaden was holding that ball forever, and it's like, bro,
yes, he
shit
was.
out. But it's like, all of these young quarterbacks got to figure that out. Penix, there's a couple plays I've seen in the past 2 games where he seems a little bit unsure of his eyes, and he hitches, but he just has the arm strength that he gets it there anyway. That's something that he's going to have to clean up eventually. It's not going to be, especially as you get to play better teams. That's something that's going to end up getting you in a position where Kirk Cousins was doing the same shit. He just didn't have the arm strength for it. But aside from that, I mean, Minnesota and Green Bay, I mean, what a fantastic game that they had again. Green Bay has got to figure that out in terms of the slow starts. In terms of the slow starts and then finishing games. And then same thing with San Fran. I mean, I talked about San Fran as a team that's in trouble, but Brock Purdy gave you an excellent game for the most part. Obviously, he had 2 picks in the end, but that defense has slipped bad. And I don't know. I really, a few years ago, I was thinking about this the other day. A few years ago, when the Falcons lost the Super Bowl, in the fashion that they lost the Super Bowl, I was like, the Falcons need to. The moment they lost the Super Bowl, I was like, the Falcons need to blow it up. It's over with. And
you did say that.
A lot of people were like, nah, like, there's no way you believe that. And I'm like, bro, like, I understand how it sounds. Like, you have an MVP quarterback, you have, arguably the best receiver of a generation. But when you lose like that, it just sends like shockwaves through like, it's demoralizing. And the Falcons are still reeling I mean, they're really still reeling. I mean, they made the playoffs the year after. I don't think they made the playoffs since.
Nope.
But the Colts, I mean, they lost a franchise quarterback. He retired. They're still reeling. Now we got to think about San Fran. Like, you lost to the same team in basically the same fashion when you dominated the game the entire time, and then in the 4th quarter, last drive, really, because it came down to the Chiefs. If the 49ers don't muff that punt, the game is over. Basically, like, they're gonna run the clock for the most part. The Chiefs may get like another chance, but that game is over with. But they muff the ball and then give the Chiefs an opportunity to lose in overtime. You have to start thinking, like, is that something that's going to affect the franchise just in general? Because, I mean, you like losing in that type of fashion twice to the same team. You have to be thinking, like, and this is the team that you're assuming that you're going to face regardless, because just who they are. So I wonder, should the 49ers break it up? Like, just everything, not just Purdy, but getting all those guys out of there. Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, well, maybe not Purdy, but Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, redo it. Obviously getting Debo out of there. Maybe you keep Kittle and IU, but obviously Pearsall's a first-round rookie. But, I think the 49ers should be having those conversations. Like, is this just detrimental, like, to our franchises? So it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward.
They'll have to pivot in some way. They came out and said that they're keeping their jobs regardless, as far as Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Of course, they always say that shit. But look, man, I don't know. Like you have questions to answer at quarterback position. I know Brock Purdy has been playing. He's been playing good this season. The two picks were the one pick, the overthrow, not the last pick, but the first pick he threw. That one was a killer. That one you can see Kyle Shanahan's just like, what the when he gets to that type of mood on the sidelines, it's never good. He's done that a lot this season. He don't usually do it to that extent. You can just tell like the whole season is just like weighing on him, which is probably why he's getting his grace in a way. But definitely questions to kind of answer there. Of course, there's been people saying that they should go out and get a quarterback. Kirk Cousins has been linked there as well, but who knows how that kind of shakes out. Do you bring Brock Purdy back for another year? Let him play out his contract completely before making a decision? Don't give him an extension. There's a lot of answer there.
And then to see
sure.
Sam Darnold doing what he doing, and you had him.
Yeah. Do you bring Sam Darnold back? Like, I don't know.
I wouldn't even say, because a lot of people are trying to put this on Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, to me, has played really well. He's had, obviously, a lot of back-breaking interceptions, especially over the past 4 weeks. But with that being said, I feel like Brock Purdy has played really well and tried to keep this team up afloat. And that defense is, is putrid. They didn't stop anything. I mean, obviously, Detroit is an engine that, nobody stopped. But at the same time, like, your quarterback wasn't he like 10 for 10 in the first half with like 3 touchdowns or something like that? Like, gives you damn near 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. And so, like, you gotta secure that. But same thing we talked about the Vikings earlier. People keep trying to write off Detroit, and they keep finding ways. If we can't stop nobody, we're gonna outscore you, and they've been doing it. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a very interesting offseason to see if Ben Johnson ends up leaving. I know a lot of people have been trying to link him to Chicago because of Caleb Williams. I don't know if he is ecstatic about. I don't know if anybody's like itching to go coach Caleb Williams like people think. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like Jacksonville, was in a similar boat where people were saying, Trevor Lawrence, everybody's going to want to go there. And they got a retread coach that, we're maybe finding out, hey, maybe he never was that great. And the Eagles just really, their general manager just keeps putting together teams that just can't be denied. So everybody was swearing that Trevor was going to be the darling and everybody was going to want to coach. I don't know if that, I have a feeling that it's going to be the same way like with Caleb because, once again, I don't know him. We don't know him. The body language don't look great. The body language hasn't looked great from anybody in that locker room, anybody on that sideline. And Caleb hasn't been great either. He had that really good game against Jacksonville in London, but wherever Germany, wherever the fuck they were. And now it's just like it's just gotten worse and worse. So I don't know.
It's really bad. That offense is really bad. And then it was good for that time where Thomas Brown was the OC for those couple of games. But ever since he's been head coach, it's bad, man. Caleb has looked really bad this season. I know he's had moments like people are just pointing to that one throw he had that didn't count for the touchdown. Like, oh, he can make that. Like, look now, let's judge the whole game as a totality and what's going on. Like, don't just look at this one throw and be like, oh, okay, that's the same shit with Trevor. Oh, Trevor can just make that. Oh, look at that throw. And then, like, let's look at the whole game and see what's going on and see how he's putting his team in his position.
That's the thing that's frustrating with Trevor because Trevor will have games where he's just ripping nothing but elite throws. And it's like, all right, I get it. But it's also like now you did that for 2 quarters and now the rest of the quarter or rest of the game, you look like you've never played football a day in your life. You're taking dumb sacks. Like I don't know. And then, it is funny that people keep talking about that throw because wasn't that the throw that everybody said that they didn't want to see in the NFL? like you really didn't want to see him rolling to the left and throwing like, okay,
exactly.
We know you can't do it, but that's not what we want to see you do because we want to see you in rhythm on time. But
I get the questions about that offensive line. It's not a good offensive line. I get it. But at the same time, if you go back and watch that film, there's about half of the sacks were on him. You got it, bro. You got to get rid of the ball. We talked about it with Jay. You said it with Jay. You got to get rid of the damn ball. You sitting there back there playing around. That shit is never going to end good. You can have some plays where you run towards the sideline, toss the shit up. Sure, that's all right. You can have those every now and then. But like you are holding on to the ball way too much. Your sack yardage numbers are ridiculous. There's no reason you should be taking 10 to 14 yard sacks and like multiple times a game. That's ridiculous. It is honestly ridiculous. And that's him. That's his play style. He don't like nobody's forcing him. The offensive line isn't making him run back 10 yards to take a sack. Like, no, you're gonna take a sack, take a 4-yard sack, take a 5-yard sack. And don't sit there and make a bad situation worse.
And he was not a good. This is something that we talked about with Michael Penix right before he started as well. Is Michael Penix, one of his, the super positives of him coming out was he was really good with a pressure to sack ratio. If he got pressure, he wasn't taking too many sacks, and if he was, he wasn't going for negative plays. Like maybe he takes a sack for a yard, or where the guys run out of bounds, right by the line of scrimmage, they take a little yard. But it's like you're like you said, you're scrambling, trying to hurdle folks and turning around,
hurdle people not there.
Half the half the plays is you just trying to figure out how to escape, and he's like, bro, just throw the ball away, or bro, get the ball out earlier. And Caleb was a guy that didn't have his was actually terrible pressure to sack ratio, and that's something that if you look across all of the quarterbacks, in history, I mean not in history, but definitely recent history, that's something that translates damn near 100% from college to the pros. And we've seen it thus far with Michael Penix. Patrick Mahomes was a guy that was in college that was really good pressure to sack. Anthony Richardson, same thing, both really good guys. Anthony Richardson, he takes a lot of hits. He don't take a lot of sacks. He does. He figures out a way to get that ball out, throw somebody off. He don't take a lot of sacks. Patrick Mahomes, for some reason, somehow, they don't like to tackle that nigga. He be getting out. Another guy in college that had a very bad pressure to sack ratio, Joe Burrow.
CJ Stroud. Oh.
So whenever they talk about CJ Stroud too, but whenever they talk about Joe Burrow and his offensive line, you've seen they shuffled and had a lot of different offensive linemen come in, high-priced offensive linemen, Lyle Collins, Orlando Brown, whomever else, and he still gets sacked a lot. I promise you it's not the offensive line. As great as Joe Burrow is, I promise you it's not the offensive line every time. But CJ Stroud, like you said, I promise you guys, it's not the offensive line. I promise y'all.
Everybody's saying, "Oh, his offensive line trash this year." Like, no. If you really watch what CJ Stroud is doing, he's playing terrible. He's creating pressure that's not even there, and that's the shit we see with Caleb too. When you get to that mode, you're not seeing the field well at all, obviously, and that's what this type of shit. He starts backpedaling, and he took a sack on Saturday. I was like 20 yards back. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are we going?
The sack that he took on the RPO or something, he's just standing there. Everybody's like, bro, like, do something. It's bad, and it's like, it's so funny because the entire past 2 years before CJ Stroud got drafted, the only issue that people had with him in college was that he struggled under pressure and he struggled to avoid sacks. Why is it now all of a sudden you guys think that shit was fixed? It wasn't. This is all you talked about for years with him in college. Why is all of a sudden you think it's just the offensive line and it can't possibly be hit? Like, it's okay to just call it what it is. That's something that he needs to improve on. If you want him to be great, call him out on something that he needs to improve on so he can improve on it. But I don't know. We'll see. And that's CJ Stroud is a good segue because he's a guy that should be on Hot Seat Watch to get into the Hot Seat Watch of the week. Another interesting week for some guys that landed on the Hot Seat Watch last week. But who you guys got this week and why?
For me, I don't necessarily really have people on Hot Seat Watch, but I will say this as far as I got people on the on Black Monday watch though, for real. Black Monday is the Monday after the
that's what mine is leaning towards
after,
too.
The regular season and the Monday after, you get a lot of culture fire. So I got a couple of teams. The Giants is one. I mean, I understand. You had some issues with your quarterback. But at the same time, Dabo, like this still falls on you. Like you still so you were supposed to have been a coach that was able to, get the best out of Dave Jones. That's what they brought you in for. You used to be a coach, coordinator for Josh Allen. So, they try to attribute his success to you. You get to the Giants, and now this happens. So I don't know what way they leaning. They already got dropped down from being the number 1 overall pick. So I'm not sure, which way they lean as far as what they're gonna be able to get in the draft. So I got him on there. I mean, Mike McCarthy, that's kind of low hanging fruit to me, but I don't know. That whole situation to me is interesting. It's like a back and forth thing. I honestly think they will let him go, but it's. Hey, I'm just saying, it's like what you about to say, Shy. Like, I don't know. It seems like they trying to keep him for whatever reason, but I think I think they have a good chance to let him go. And then, what other team? I wrote down. Oh,
Just a quick update. The Sugar Bowl just got rescheduled due to the issues in New Orleans. So Georgia versus Notre Dame has gotten rescheduled till tomorrow.
And then the last 2 teams, they're actually teams that are vying for a playoff spot, and that's the Dolphins and the Bengals. I mean, yes, you have a bad defense, Zach Taylor, but your coaching throughout the whole season has been shaky at best. And it's tough to go into a season where, you're trying to figure out your situation with your receivers. Are we going to keep T. Higgins? Are we going to sign Jamar Chase? This, that, and the third. So I know there's a lot of pressure on them. But, I mean, this season, this was a bad season for you. The same thing goes for Mike McDaniel. Like, I just don't think he's a good head coach at all. I mean, he might be a smart play designer possibly, but as far as the team goes in general, like I really honestly think they should move on from him. I think his approach is he just doesn't seem like he's like in tune with the team, or his personality is allowing the team to be lax most of the season. And it's just, you didn't produce nothing. Like, I get it, Tua went out, but at the same time, even when he was in there, you're supposed to be this explosive team, and it was not that at all this whole year. So those are the few teams that I think could possibly look at a coaching change.
Mike McDaniel was one that, and honestly, I had them. I was going to talk about Zach Taylor, but you kind of mentioned on it. But Mike McDaniel was one where, like, and we talked about it kind of earlier in the season. He's one of those guys that just stuck in his way in a way, and I get it. You have your philosophy, how you want to approach the offense, how you want to approach things. But we talked about it this season, like how the rotating room at running back, no real plan there. You're using screen passes as your run game. That shit does not fly all the time. I know you have the speed to do it sometimes, but that's not a good recipe when you get in sticky situations where you just got to punch it down somebody's mouth, and you can't. Like, they can't. It's just not in their DNA at all. I don't know if he gets fired, but Mike McDaniel really has to show something next season. They have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason as well. Like, it's going to be a very fun offseason for us to kind of look at all of this. I can't wait for it, to be honest. But I'm going to talk a little bit about, since I can't do Zach Taylor no more, because his play calling, especially in that last game, was if they lost that game, that would be on him. But I'm going to talk about Kevin Stefanski, and mainly because of that restructure that they gave to Deshaun Watson. I know it's like you added some years on his contract so you can void it out if you decide to move on him from next year or after next year or something like that. But even this season, you go from a playoff team, you go from a 10-win team last season to, or did they win 10 wins? 9 or 10 wins, whatever it was last season, to now you only got 3 wins. Like, and it's not like much of your team has changed. You actually got in not a bona fide receiver, but a receiver that had a lot to prove, and he did prove it this season with Judy. But like you hand over offensive play calling to Ken Dorsey. That's number one. It's like, all right, what's going on over there? And the offense has not looked good. I get it that you had Jameis, who was throwing 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. I get it. Pick sixes, I get it. You turn it over to DTR because Jameis Winston is having these turnover problems, and DTR has 0 touchdowns and 6 picks in 2 games or 3 games. So it's like, well, what's really going on with his offense here that I know you still have a hand in to an extent. I know you handed over play calling, but this is still your offense. You're still Kevin Stefanski. So it's like, what is really going on there? It has not looked good for the Browns. I don't know what they do in the off season. I would not be super shocked if they decide to just cut ties and move on. I know he is the head, like coach of the year. I get it, but I just wouldn't be shocked if Black Monday comes around. It's like, okay, the Browns just want to reset this shit, get a new person in here, get a new voice in here, and see what happens from there. But Kevin Stefanski, like, it hasn't looked good this season for you. But I know, like this last game of the season, you're playing. You know, I don't really expect I don't really expect too much. You are going against the Ravens, but this is still a divisional game. You don't want to go out sad, and it's even worse that you are on Hard Knocks. So we're seeing inside these meetings, we're getting a little bit of access. Like, you're getting the fans access to what you're talking about and how you're talking directly compared to the other coaches in your division, like Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin, that have their teams in the playoffs, and that's not a good look. You muted.
Yeah, not a good look at all. And Kevin Stefanski, it's going to be interesting because if Kirk Cousins doesn't retire, maybe that's a place that he lands. Or it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with the entire quarterback situation. And obviously, you've had your players come and say some stuff about, you guys got to show me as well. So that's going to be interesting. Interesting offseason for a lot of teams, like I said. It'll be an interesting offseason for the two people that I have on my hot seat watch as well. Two people that are linked together in a way that are not on the same team. So the first person I'm going to start with is Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has an opportunity to revitalize his career. Maybe he's not going to get a starter job, but you beat a team that's trying to get into the playoffs. You put on a good performance. In a division rivalry game, especially with guys, we don't know how many of the starters of the Chiefs will play, but that will definitely give somebody, hey, maybe we should look at Carson Wentz for, a position maybe to be a bridge type quarterback, be a Sam Darnold type quarterback. So this is a really good opportunity for Carson Wentz to kind of put his name back on the map. I would assume that most of America probably does not even know that Carson Wentz is the backup quarterback in Kansas City. We talked about Sam Darnold. Carson Wentz also spent time with the Los Angeles Rams. Could the Rams be a team that is interested in him? Could the Minnesota Vikings be a team that's interested in him? Or even the Browns? All of these teams that have that similar type of offensive style and kind of come from that, Shanahan McVay tree. Which leads me to my next guy, because Carson Wentz, everything went to shit when you were with Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard, your career is over in Indianapolis, probably. It probably, maybe you might get the benefit of the doubt for next year, just because everybody just about was signed, until 2026 for the Colts. So, maybe they want to just try to see if it works out with Anthony Richardson, the Ballard, Anthony Richardson, Steichen marriage, can work out for another year, maybe. But Jim Irsay clearly likes Chris Ballard. He clearly thinks that Chris Ballard is a good GM. I would think that a lot of people, think that, and maybe not a good GM. They at least think he's sharp. He clearly has an eye for talent. The Colts have been a really good drafting team, but as Cass mentioned, some of the people that you draft, like, there are people that have needed a little bit of time to develop. And when you're not bolstering that team with good free agent signings, which the Colts have actually been pretty decent at signing free agents as well, when you're not bolstering that team with a lot of free agent signings, you become heavily reliant on the culture that you built or the people that you bring in. And when you got a guy like Alec Pierce obviously is a really good player, a really good receiver. This is kind of his breakout season, in part because he finally has a quarterback that can actually, take advantage of his strengths. But, there was a lot of Colts fans that were ready to get rid of him last year, 2 years ago. That's why A.D. Mitchell's here. A guy like Zaire Franklin that took a few years to develop. These guys that you're having in pole positions that are taking years to develop. Even you're trying to bring Latu along, and you're not giving him a bunch of snaps, but you look at his numbers compared to some of the top rookies, at least in terms of their pressure percentages and stuff like that. But you have him sitting on the bench for what reason? You had a defensive end, your starting defensive end, get hurt at the beginning of the season. It's silly shit like that. But to bring the Carson Wentz, Chris Ballard thing together, Carson Wentz, the end of his career basically happened with the Colts, and the end of Chris Ballard's career probably should with the Colts should have been at that same point when Carson Wentz had his end with the Colts. That was a year that the Colts lost to a 1-win Jacksonville team with a winning to get in opportunity. And it was an epic collapse by the Colts. They lost to a Jacksonville team. They lost to the Raiders. Back-to-back weeks, I believe. It might have been 2 out of 3 weeks, but 2 games that they should have easily won. An epic collapse that we have seen have been synonymous with the Colts. Obviously, losing against the Giants this year, losing against Jake Browning and the Bengals last year, and freaking Taylor Heinicke and the Atlanta Falcons last year, and losing to C.J. Stroud at home in the last game of the season, another win to get in. This was Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay or whoever tried to put out that it was Carson Wentz. They tried to put all the blame on Carson Wentz, that it was Carson Wentz's fault. The Colts were a quarterback away. They just needed some leadership. We saw them bring in a Matt Ryan. We saw how that went. So you doomed one person's career to kind of boost your career, and your career hadn't gone great. This person's career did go down the shitter, but now you get an opportunity to kind of, have the last laugh with Carson Wentz and Chris Ballard. I don't know what the future holds for you. I don't know if he's going to be here in Indy. I don't know if he's well liked. I don't know if he'll get picked up again just because of everything that's happened over this 8 years. But, those are two people that are kind of intertwined in a way. And 2 people, Carson Wentz, you can break the curse for your career, and maybe break the curse of the Colts by getting Chris Ballard fired as well. Thank you. So, Chris Ballard, you are definitely on the hot seat. 8-year-long hot seat, and Carson Wentz, you're definitely on the hot seat as well. Probably like a 4-year-long hot seat. So, you get an opportunity to beat the Broncos. If you do, the Bengals will be happy, or one team will be happy. But you'll probably also be happy with your pockets next year and getting another opportunity. So, Carson Wentz, Chris Ballard, you guys are on the watch. You're a Black Monday candidate as well, Chris Ballard. So, let's see.
I like it.
But with that being said, that gives us to the last regular season pick'ems of the week. Give us what a rundown of last week looked like, including the NBA basketball game, and we will go ahead and get into this week's.
Yeah. So all right, we picked 5. So I got 4 out of 5 right. My only loss was Atlanta, of course. Both of y'all picked Green Bay to win over Minnesota, which didn't happen. So total on the season, we're still looking at Shai, you're at 59. Chris, you're at 66, sorry. And then I'm at 57. So I'm still behind a little bit. So, and then the basketball, of course, you two picked the Lakers. I picked Golden State. The Lakers ended up pulling that out. Not much to say there.
Ours.
Yeah, not much to say there. But Golden State got a lot of questions. I will say that. They're I think, what are they, 500 right now, 16-16, or they might be under 500.
500. I thought they might be under 500.
16-17.
Actually, that might be Phoenix that was under 500.
Okay. But still, a lot of questions in Golden State. They're still trying to make moves. They brought in Dennis Schroeder, hasn't looked all right. I know it's only been a week or whatever, but I don't think Dennis Schroeder was. I don't know. We didn't talk about that trade too much, obviously, but I don't think that was a trade that really moved the needle too much there. But
we needed to do something,
just to keep the shit going. Yeah. So the Lakers, I know they ended up trading D'Angelo Russell. Finally, they got Dorian Finney-Smith in there, who everybody's enamored with. I think he was a good player. He's a good player 3 years ago, and he's still kind of living off that in my opinion. But cool, whatever. We'll see how much that changes for them going forward. But still a lot of questions for both of those teams, the Lakers and the Warriors, going into the rest of the season. Shout out to the Cavs too. We got to shout them out.
Shout out the Cavs. I mean, the Lakers and Warriors have a lot of questions. Warriors more than the Lakers. They know what their answer is. It's not something that they probably like, and it's obviously the LeBron,
I mean, they probably do
Steph
like
Curry
it, but don't
marriage.
want to do it.
And it's not going to happen in Golden State like they wanted to. I think, and that's probably why it hasn't happened to this point. But Golden State's missing the playoffs again, unquestionably. They're missing the playoffs again. They try to do once again. I feel like this has been the year of PR. Once they couldn't make any trades, or they tried to put out that they were close to making the trades and that they were holding off on certain guys, or they could have had Paul George, and they never could have had those folks. It's clearly obvious by judging by the best they could get was Dennis Schroeder. They're still not able to trade Jonathan Kuminga, even though he's clearly told everybody that he doesn't want to be there. They have clearly told everybody that they don't want him, but somehow they still can't trade him, but they were so close to everybody else. Okay.
But he was the sticking point for all the last 2 seasons. All right.
Budzinski, I mean, I like Pods, but I mean, okay. So the Warriors are, I mean, it's over with for them. It's been over with the moment that Jordan Poole got punched, and it's, once again, like I said about the Falcons, no disrespect, when we got at the end of the Super Bowl, when you have something catastrophic happen, just cut the ties. Cut the ties. Just cut the ties. You never come back from it. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we do got another week of Saturday games. Obviously, we don't have the Thursday games anymore now that we're at the end of the season, getting into the playoffs. This is a big week for Saturday, really, because we've got Cleveland at Baltimore to start off. Obviously, Cleveland is out of it, but Baltimore has an opportunity to clinch the division with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Bengals following them after that game. But for the first game, who you guys got and why?
Man, I got Baltimore, man. They're going to go ahead and take this win, wrap up the division, not even play around with these people. I mean, Browns, they out of it. They might try to fight hard or whatnot, but Baltimore, they're going to prove to be too much for them, so I got Baltimore.
Yeah, watching these last couple of games with DTR starting, I like DTR. He's a fun quarterback to root for, but he's not a good quarterback. He's not a good NFL quarterback right now, not a starter. It's looked really rough these last couple of games with him, at the helm. There's no way I can pick them. So I'm going Baltimore, and I think they end up wrapping this up somewhere in the middle of the third quarter where they don't have to play their starters in the fourth. I think it ends up like that.
Yeah, I'm also going Baltimore, obviously. Defense has been excellent, basically, the entirety of the back half of the season. They were obviously excellent against the Texans, even though is that the Texans or is that them? I'm going to give them their credit because that play that stop on the goal line was excellent. Especially when that, Ardarius Washington smacked Joe Mixon right before he got in. That was a great play. So I'm going to give them the credit where it's due. But Cleveland's drawing dead. They got the goofy game off of the Ravens already earlier in the season. I don't think it happens twice. So, moving to the next game, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's obviously reeling. It seems like they might have another issue with another receiver. That's going to be something that's going to be talked about in this offseason, maybe. And then Cincinnati obviously trying to keep their hopes alive for potentially getting into the playoffs. Who you guys got and why?
Like you said, man, Steelers are reeling, which is interesting that, they still have a chance at the division, but the game is played before them. So, I mean, I wonder if, if the Ravens go ahead and take care of business and win, and then they win the division, I mean, at what point do you, try to get your starter some kind of rest? But, I mean, that offense is bad. And that's going to be their downfall. So I believe they're not going to be able to, even though they have a good defense, I feel like they're not going to be able to keep up with Cincinnati. Cincinnati going to be able to score a little bit, and they're just going to keep, falling down by the wayside. And I got Cincinnati in this one.
Yeah, like you said, Shad, like that, the receivers on Pittsburgh, and I had after the Senior Bowl last year, and they ended up drafting Roman Wilson. I thought he would be a big, he's had some injury issues this year, obviously. But I was hoping he'll have a big year for them because I know how much he was needed there. And I think he's a good compliment off of George Pickens. I don't necessarily know if Russell Wilson is the right quarterback for him, even if he does come back and play this last game or in the playoffs. Just from how, we know Russell Wilson likes to go out to the boundaries. That's what he plays. That's his sweet spot, which is cool, but still a lot of questions with the offense and with the quarterback position going into the offseason. For sure, we'll get there. But I got to go Cincinnati here. Even on the road, I think they're during this game, their playoff hopes are still very much alive. And then they go in and get this done.
Yeah, I'm rocking with the Steelers. Surprisingly, in this one,
okay.
Cincinnati has Cincinnati flirts with losing every week. They're a team that doesn't really know how to win, in my opinion. They did win that game against the Broncos this past week, but in my opinion, that had a little, as great as Joe Burrow was, had a little bit more to do with the Sean Payton maybe not trusting Bo Nix, and kind of how the Broncos went about that game. But the Bengals are much like the Dolphins and the Colts, where they're just a soft team, and eventually it's gonna come. The dysfunction is gonna show up. And I think that it shows up this game. They've obviously already played Pittsburgh, in Cincinnati, which was a game that it was a high scoring game that Pittsburgh ended up winning. It's seemingly they always maybe split, but the Bengals always have trouble with the Steelers, kind of like how the Ravens have trouble with the Steelers. And I just think that a couple weeks removed from TJ Watt having that injury, George Pickens being another week removed from coming back, I just can't see them going on a 5-game losing streak, because I think they're going to lose the first game of the playoffs unless they get to see Houston. I just can't see them going on a complete 5-game losing streak to lose to in the season. So I'm rocking with Pittsburgh in this one, and the Bengals hopes get crushed, and Sunday gets a little less eventful. But getting into the Sunday games, it's kind of tough because we don't really know, and we don't necessarily have to get into too much detail on some of these games because, like I said, we really don't know who's going to play or who's not. Seattle at the Rams, it's kind of a moot game, because now that we know that Seattle is out, who you guys got?
I mean, it is, but as the Rams, if you lose this game and the Bucks win, then you're gonna end up playing either Minnesota or Detroit because you would drop down from 3 to 4. So, I mean, I guess in their sense, you want to win this game to avoid that. But I mean, either way, your options of who you playing aren't that good. Because if you avoid that, you might have to play Green Bay. So it kind of don't matter for them. But I think they're gonna win. I mean, Seattle, they might. I don't even know if Seattle's gonna play their players. And Gino, he's still hurt. It would be no reason to play him at all. So I mean, I think the Rams are going to try to win this game and avoid dropping down to play Detroit or Minnesota. So I think they're going to try to go out there and win this game. I think they pull it off. Still going to be a low scoring game. Their offense has been inept the last few weeks. It hasn't gotten better. They've been playing against teams that I wouldn't say have great defenses, and they just haven't been able to do much. So it's still going to be a low scoring game, but I think they'll pull out the win.
I'm gonna go Seattle with this one. I don't really, like you said, I mean, it's kind of moot in a way. But I'm just gonna go Seattle with this and kind of close out their season. I think Mike McDonald will get them boys ready to close out the season on a high note, and lift the gear up for next season. Of course, they got some questions there too. So I got Seattle.
And I hate it for them because I still think that Seattle has the best roster, and that, well, maybe not the complete best roster in the division, but outside of San Fran, I think they have the best roster in the division, and maybe even the most talented just overall that has been unseen. And like you said, they're just having a tough season. They got to figure out that O line, and maybe some of that is a little bit of Geno, but some of it is. I mean, that O line is just terrible. I'm going to go with the Rams in this one. I just think that the Rams need to get into the playoffs on a little bit of a hotter streak than they are. I mean, obviously they've won, a lot of their last few games, but some of these wins haven't been, the most promising wins either. So I'm rocking with the Rams just to kind of keep the momentum for them going into the playoffs. And then, once the games start 0-0, anything can happen. But getting into the next game, Kansas City at Denver. Obviously this is a huge game for Denver, and an opportunity for Kansas City to finish the season with only one loss. Denver, an opportunity for them to get into the playoffs with a win. But who you guys got and why?
Like I said, it's not much to play for Kansas City. Denver, you win, you get in. But I actually think Kansas City is going to win the game. I think they're going to play them hard. They're still a divisional opponent, regardless of if you have your starters in or not. And I like the idea of Carson Wentz, showing people that he still got something in the tank. So it's gonna be a good game to me. It's gonna be a back and forth game, but I think Kansas City somehow miraculously, doesn't matter they stars in or not, they miraculously pull a rabbit out the hat. But I think they play spoilers to Denver and give them a L. But obviously they can still make the playoffs without. But
I'm gonna go Kansas City as well. There's a lot of things I've seen with Kansas City's backups. I think they can still exploit Bo Nix in that offense. And we'll see how much Sean Payton kind of lets him air it out, see how he wants to call this game. But I still think Kansas City could find a way to pull this out somehow. Even on the road, I don't trust Denver right now. like it's kind of like the Steelers with me. You can just see it just like with good season for both those teams, but at the end of the day, not yet.
Yeah, I'm also going Kansas City in this one. It will be a little bit disheartening for Denver and Denver fans because to have to have 9 wins, 3 weeks ago, and it's still in the season with 9 wins will be a little very disappointing. And I also don't know how what positives do you take from your young quarterback at that point? Not to say that there shouldn't be any, but fumbling and basically your young quarterback kind of fumbling it for you guys over the last 3 weeks or so. But I have a feeling this is going to play out to where all the teams that Denver is going to end up losing, and all the teams that could have won to get in are going to end up losing as well. And Denver sneaks in.
They just backdoor their way in.
and they backdoor their way in. They really almost backdoored their way in with a tie last week as well. So I have a feeling that's what ends up happening. But for the final Sunday Night Football game of the year in the regular season, a huge game, obviously, potentially the best game of the season, biggest game of the season for the division, for possibly the number 1 seed, the Minnesota Vikings versus the Detroit Lions. Sunday Night Football. Who you guys got? One?
Man, these are the games that when the schedule makers come out, they try to get right, have your division games sorted at the end, maybe plan for something, and this is a huge one. Not only the division win, this is for the number 1 seed at bye week and home field advantage cross for the whole playoffs. But man, I was going back and forth with this one, but I'm gonna take the Vikings on this one. I just feel like at this point, Detroit defense can't stop a nosebleed. They are really bad, and I get that their offense is scoring a lot, but I feel like the Vikings can cause. I feel like the Vikings can get a stopper here and there for them, and take advantage of that. Hell, San Francisco, they were up. They did stop them on 4th down to keep them from scoring. They were up in that game until some crazy ass turnovers. But they was up in that game. They had a opportunity to win that game. But I think the Vikings defense show up a little bit and keep the scoring down to a minimum. And I think they pull this one out and get the number 1 seed. Shock the whole world because again, nobody saw this shit coming at all.
That'd be crazy. You get 15. That's crazy. I'm gonna go Detroit though. I think they pull this out. Look, it's in a matchup like this. I kind of just got to go home team on this, but Yeah, I think I can't wait for this one. It's gonna be a good one. Sunday Night Football. They definitely chose the right game. um, yeah, Detroit gonna pull this one out. I think Minnesota though, they have a chance because you've seen Jared Goff. Still, of course, as every quarterback, I get it under pressure. But you've seen Jared Goff kind of cough up some shit, and Minnesota again is that team that can take advantage of that and make those turnovers, really bad decisions, and score points off of it. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I'm gonna go to Detroit. Should be a good one.
Yeah, I'm also rocking with Detroit. But I mean, obviously, I could see the Vikings winning as well. But yeah, Detroit. I mean, it just you know everybody's kind of like I said, we've all kind of said that we think they're going to take a drop off, and I mean, even though the defense has still given up points, obviously against Buffalo and Minnesota, for them to still be winning, I mean, that's super impressive. Obviously, the same thing with the Vikings can be said in terms of Sam Darnold and his play, but I mean, at this point, it's almost kind of like seeming like they're just kind of a team of destiny, where it's just destined for them to be the one seed. It's destined for them to continue this part of their progression of their program under Dan Campbell. And every single time just about that they have been presented a challenge, they have stepped up to it. So I'm thinking that, I'm not saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl or even make it to the Super Bowl. But I definitely think that getting that one seed and then the talk about Aiden Hutchinson coming back is going to heat up a lot, especially during that bye weekend as we kind of start to see how the playoffs materialize for the rest of the at post wild cards. So I'm rocking with Detroit, but I think it's going to be a good one, a close one, probably like a 31-28 type deal, with a game-winning field goal or
I think
something
that was
like
the
that.
first score of the first game they played.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a good one. I would love to see Minnesota get that one seed as well. If Sam Darnold is able to really, that's a real career revitalization right there. You get the one seed bye week in a tough division, in a tough conference. That would be fantastic. So, but yeah, man, that gives us another wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast, the first of 2025. So happy New
Yes,
Year's
sir.
to everyone out there. Be safe in any type of celebration this day. Enjoy some good college football playoffs, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Yes, sir.